With a major heat wave taking over much of the country this past week, could major changes result in some fall-like temperatures? Do we have another major hurricane out there that will affect the homeland? I'll be breaking that all down coming up in this video. Howdy y'all, welcome back. Hope y'all enjoyed your Labor Day weekend. Let's go ahead and get right on into it here. We're going to look at the National Hurricane Center. We have a 10% chance up here. Not really going to affect much of anybody, but we do have a couple more disturbances down here. We have Tropical Depression 14. Looks like this is going to turn into a tropical storm by Friday, turning into a hurricane by the evening of Saturday. That's going to start to churn out into the Atlantic by Tuesday, and this really won't affect much of anybody. But the main story is going to be Lee. Turned into a Category 1 hurricane yesterday, and is projected to turn into a Category 5 hurricane later in the week. And they're saying as early as Friday, as this could turn into a catastrophic hurricane. Now the track is very uncertain at this point. Let's go ahead and take a look at the simulated infrared radar here on the Euro model. As we can see, we got Lee right here in that little tropical depression. That ain't gonna affect much of anybody. As he pushes forward, we can see that it's gonna start to strengthen into a potential Category 5 by this time. And this is where it's gonna start to make its decision as to where it could go. We have four options. Option A, it could churn out here into the Caribbean islands and turn up into the Gulf of Mexico and affect much of the coast of Louisiana and Florida. Option B, it could churn up here into the Carolina coast and possibly into Florida. Or option C, it could churn up into the northeast and affect the northeastern part of the country. Or secret option D, it could recurve and turn out into the Atlantic and turn into a little bit of a fish storm. But the Euro model, as we push this forward, it looks like this will get sheared out and churn up into the northeast and bring a lot of heavy rainfall to parts of Maine. Let's go and take a look at the troughing and ridging patterns here on the 500 millibar height anomaly map. And why I'm showing you this is because on the simulated infrared model, I was saying that as I was heading towards the north, towards Maine, that was being sheared out. And the reason behind that is because of this right here, little troughing pattern right here. Hurricanes hate troughs because of the wind shear, it tears them apart, obviously. And this is when Hurricane Lee is going to make a decision whether to go this way, or up towards this way, or even up into the Atlantic. Now, according to the Euro, it's going to go towards Maine, but it's going to be sheared out because of this trough, and it's going to weaken down and turn into possibly a tropical storm as it makes landfall over by Maine. It's going to bring a lot of heavy rainfall and some damaging winds. But I think the most likely thing that's going to happen, because this is so far out, is I think that this troughing pattern will happen, but I think that this hurricane will churn out into the Atlantic and just not affect the homeland any at all. That's the best case scenario. Now, worst case scenario would be that a ridge would set up, which most likely won't happen. But if it does happen, then it would most likely move inland towards the Carolinas. But again, that's highly unlikely. And we will be keeping track of this as this does progress. So make sure you are subscribed to this channel. I will have further updates. So let's go and see what kind of other hurricanes we got going on out here. As we do have Hurricane Jova. It's currently a Category 5 hurricane as of uploading this video. Looks like it's going to progress, still remain a hurricane through Saturday. It's going to turn into a tropical depression by Monday. And this turn out into the Pacific and not really affect much of anybody. Not even going to affect Hawaii. As you can see, we got nothing going on out there by Hawaii. So now that we know what kind of hurricanes and tropical storms are forming out there in the Atlantic and in the Pacific, let's go and see what kind of severe weather could be coming our way in the near future. As we can see, we got a slight risk for severe weather here on Thursday over here, spanning from Northern Virginia up into Vermont, with the northern risk here in the dark green. There is no tornado threat, which is good, but there is a damaging wind threat, which is a 15% chance that affects over 24 million people. There's a 5% chance here in the dark red. As large health threat goes, a small chance, but a chance nonetheless. There's a 5% chance. As far as flooding goes, another small chance as well. If you live in a low-lying area, please be aware of this. And if you're out on the driving on the road, see a flooded roadway, do not drive through that roadway. Turn around, do not drown. As we move off into Friday, there's a couple slight risk areas of concern. One down here by Texas. One up here by Pennsylvania, Connecticut, and New Jersey, and New York's even including that as well. There is no tornado threat tomorrow, which is good, but there is a damaging wind threat, which is a 15% chance within both slight risk zones here in the yellow and a 5% chance here in the red. As far as large health threat goes, there's a 15% chance here down by Texas, and a 5% chance within these red zones here. Move off into Saturday, we have another threat for severe weather, as there is a marginal risk here in the dark green. Low threat, still threat nonetheless. We don't know what the main hazards are going to be. Now that we know what the threats are for severe weather for the next 3 days, let's go and take a look at the time frames when you could expect the worst from the severe weather. And to take a look at the time frames for when you could expect the worst from the severe weather, we're going to take a look at the HRRR model. Keep in mind the date and time is right here. This is the nation time. As we zoom in, we're going to focus on the slight risk zone and even the marginal risk zones as well. And keep in mind, damaging winds and large hail are the primary threats today. As we push this forward, severe weather is going to be getting started by right around 5-6 o'clock tonight if you live within the slight risk zone. And it looks like it's going to start to taper off by right around 10 o'clock and turn more into a flooding threat, as y'all are under a marginal risk for excessive rainfall today. And if you are in the marginal risk zones, can't leave y'all out. Looks like if you live in the Carolinas, down into Georgia, severe weather around the same time. If you live over in Oklahoma, down Louisiana, it's like right around 9 o'clock. Like y'all could expect severe weather later tonight into the early morning hours of Friday. And if you live over there by Nebraska, right around midnight is when I would expect the worst of severe weather over there. Now, the main threats in the marginal risk zone is mainly going to be large hail. That's really the only risks, other than damaging winds. Now, y'all could expect from right around 6 o'clock through 10 o'clock, 20 to 30 mile an hour wind gusts with any of these storms today. So please be aware of that. Make sure you tie down anything you don't want blowing around today. If you live within any of these colored zones, make sure you put anything up. You don't want damage from hail as well, as that is another threat today. As we push off into Friday, we'll lower resolution down to the NAM 3-kilometer model. We got a couple slight risks. One over here in the northeastern part of the country, one down here by Texas. And we know we got Friday night high school football games going on. Now, it looks like down by Texas, it looks like timing of the worst of severe is going to be happening through the late morning into the early afternoon hours. It looks like your Friday night football game plan is going to be okay. The fields might be kind of soggy, but still, it's okay over there. If you live in the northeastern part of the country, it looks like the severe weather threats can be happening during the Friday night football games, or it could be soggy, but it looks like the worst is going to be happening 10 o'clock and 11 o'clock. You could be experiencing some rumbles of thunder right around 5 o'clock in the morning. I'm experiencing a lot of heavy rain, as y'all are also under marginal risk for excessive rainfall tomorrow. So again, live down here by Texas, your Friday night football game plan is going to be okay. Live over there in the northeast, looks like y'all might be rained out. Could experience some heavy winds and some large hail. As we move off into Saturday, we have multiple marginal risks. One over here by Montana, one over here, part of the central part of the country, down here by Texas, and over here by Maine. To take a look at this, we're going to take a look at the NAM 12-kilometer model. Now, keep in mind, we do not know what the main hazards are going to be just yet. Please go follow my Twitter page. It will have updates on there, as these risks might be upgraded. We will know the hazards. As we push this forward to Saturday, it looks like we could be experiencing some severe weather through the early afternoon hours over here in Montana, Texas, and over here in the northeast. And if you live in the central part of the country, you could expect severe weather to happen through the late evening into overnight hours on Saturday. So now that we know the main risks for the next 3 days, and we know what kind of hurricanes and tropical storms are forming out there in the Atlantic and the Pacific, let's go and take a look at what we could expect as we head into the middle of September. And to determine what we could expect as we head into the middle of September, let's go and take a look at the 500 millibar height anomaly map. This determines our troughing and ridging patterns. We know we've been pretty hot out in the central to eastern part of the country and sort of cool out west. Now, it looks like this pattern is going to start to shift. As you can see, we have a little ridging pattern setting up and a troughing pattern setting up out east. This means that hotter air is going to start to funnel its way towards the central and western part, while some cooler air is going to start to enter the eastern part of the country. Looks like this pattern is going to persist for quite some time, and even the week of September 11th, as Hurricane Lee starts to make a decision of where it's going to go. You can see this little troughing pattern is going to start to set up, and this is going to have a role in where Hurricane Lee is going to go. As it looks like it's going to turn towards the northeast, and it's going to get sheared apart before it makes landfall over by Maine, where y'all could expect some heavy winds and some heavy rain. I'm sure y'all are curious, with the trough setting out east and a major ridge setting out west, what kind of temperatures could we expect? First, we're going to take a look at the temperature anomalies to determine this. Blues represent below average, reds, they represent the above average. Looks like much of the northeast and the south, y'all going to come into an above average pattern, while the western part of the country and the central part of the country is going to come into a little bit of a below average pattern. Now this pattern is going to shift. As you can see, much of the country here is going to be below average, and even down by Texas as well on the 12th. The northwest part, and even in the over here by the Carolinas, y'all coming into an above average pattern. Move this forward, you can see this pattern starting to shift again. Below average temperatures expected for the central and eastern part, while the western part of the country is remaining hot. Now, as far as the temperatures go, you can see we got 100-degree temperatures down by Texas before some cooler air starts to move in through Thursday morning. And we're in this back and forth pattern until the week of September 11th, where you can see some cooler air starting to seep as far south as Iowa. And it's going to go even further than that. As you can see, it's going down as far as Missouri on September 13th, coming into some 50-degree temperatures on the morning of the 13th. We're coming into some fall-like temperatures by the middle of the month. So just prepare for that. And this is probably due to Starbucks and Dunkin' rolling out their Starbucks drinks. As we look at the 6 to 10 day temperature outlook, looks like much of the central and eastern part of the country is coming into this below average pattern, while the rest of the country here in the red, we are coming into an above average temperature pattern. Next 8 to 14 days looks just about the same. And before we get into the simulated radar, we're going to look at the precipitation map first to determine our below average and above average pattern. And it looks like much of the country is coming into an above average precipitation pattern. And that's good if you live down here by Texas. Y'all have been in some severe drought conditions. It looks like from California on over into the UP of Michigan, y'all are coming into some drought-like conditions. Next 8 to 14 days looks just about the same, except for much of Arizona and Nevada are included in this dry pattern, and also part of the Midwest region is included in this as well. Lastly, let's take a look at the simulated radar to see what kind of storms are coming our way. We know we got the severe weather that's occurring for most of the northeast part of the country, down here by Texas, and even part of the central part of the country as well, getting in on this severe weather action. Now, severe weather season is winding down as we're heading towards fall. The official beginning of fall is right around September 21st. That's the official first day of fall. Now, it looks like much of the country is coming into a soggy pattern, as you can see. Right around September 11th, much of the central part of the country and even the northeastern part of the country is coming into a soggy pattern, as a major trough is going to start to set in. And it looks like Hurricane Lee is going to start to make a turn towards the north here, bring high surf out here to the coast of the Carolinas, bring a lot of rainfall to the northeast as well. Going to be some potential severe weather over here by Texas as well on the 15th. So it looks like a major soggy pattern is setting up for much of the country, and it's well needed if you live over here by Texas. It looks like an active weather pattern is going to be setting up, as we're going to be having some severe weather for the next 3 days. So if you live within any of these risk zones, please be weather aware, as the primary threats are mainly going to be damaging winds and large hail. It looks like fall is making a comeback, as we're going to be dealing with some pretty nice temperatures as we head into the middle of September. As far as the tropics go, we have to keep our eye on Hurricane Lee, as it does look like it's going to be moving towards the homeland, but the track is very uncertain at this point of where it could go, so please stay tuned for that. We'll have updates on here and on my Twitter page. Make sure you go follow that, and make sure you subscribe down below. And it looks like we're coming into a little bit of a soggy pattern for much of the country as well. So if you liked the video, please hit that thumbs up button. Don't forget to subscribe down below. Constructive feedback is always appreciated. I appreciate each and every one of y'all for tuning in. And until next time, never stop forecasting.